It is the Ravens Rundown by Chat Sports. Tyler Jones here with you. Appreciate you joining us. On today's show, we are going to talk about the team needs for the Ravens. What do they need to address this offseason, and what are some potential options the Ravens could be looking at? We'll explain all of that and more in just 1 second. Before we do, folks, we are closing in on 9,000 subscribers here on the channel, about 275 away from doing so, but we need your help to get there. If you love the Ravens, you want more Ravens content, this is the channel for you. And as we grow this channel, we're going to be able to do more things. We have a live show now every other Tuesday because the flock wanted more Ravens content. We're able to deliver. And so if we keep on growing, then we can do more watch parties throughout the year and have a good time. So if you love your Ravens, subscribe now for free. Doesn't cost you a thing, and we'll get started with today's show. The Ravens, I'll say this. They are a good football team, okay? They were in the playoffs, right? And they've had terrible luck when it's come to injuries the last two seasons. I believe the last 2 years would have been a lot different had they been healthier. I think most people feel that same way. And so with that being said, this is a team that when you address these needs that they have, you are closer to the top than you are the bottom. One problem, though, the AFC is still pretty dang good. And so you have to get the top really, really good and shore up some things. And so with that said, we're going to go over all these team needs and potential options for the Ravens to address. Obviously, you have to start with the receiver position. You moved on from Hollywood Brown last year, and you didn't replace him necessarily. And the Ravens paid quite the price for that last year. Rashad Bateman obviously got hurt. We never saw anybody really step up and be the next man for that receiving core. Here's a few guys that come to mind for receivers that I would look at for the Ravens. And we compiled a list when we looked at draft, trade, and free agent candidates all in one. And for me, I first start off with draft stuff. I look at a guy like Quentin Johnston from TCU. He's the first guy that I think of for Baltimore that comes to mind of who I would like to see fill that role for this Ravens team and be an instant impact player. Jackson Smith-Njigba, I think, is arguably just as talented, but he did have the injury and missed most of last year. So slight edge to Quentin Johnston as far as I'm concerned. Number 3, Jordan Addison at USC. I like him too. If you're the Ravens, I think you're happy with any of these 3 guys. Whoever's available at 22, if you can bring any of those guys in, you're feeling pretty good about yourself that you found another young receiver there. But slight priority to Johnston, then Smith-Njigba, then Addison. At 4, that's where we go to the trade market potentially with DeAndre Hopkins of the Arizona Cardinals. D-Hop still got some good football left with it in him, but he won't be cheap because, remember, you have to pay him, also give up assets as well. And then there's Jacoby Myers of the New England Patriots. He'll be entering free agency. I would expect that he'll be back with the Patriots, but for now anyway, he is a very good option there when it comes to free agents that are available. Probably the best free agent receiver on the market. So, with that said, with the receiver position, who would you add of those 5 names we talked about, or somebody else out there? Who would you consider bringing to the Baltimore Ravens this offseason? Let us know in the comments section. Give me one name you'd like to see the Ravens add. Number 2, let's talk the cornerback spot. Now, I'll say this. The Ravens, we saw this past season, got picked apart at times with their corners in the secondary. And with the Ravens' position, I prefer taking a wide receiver in the first round at 22. But if you don't, I like a couple of guys in this draft specifically. Joey Porter Jr. of Penn State. And I know that would be very ironic to see a Joey Porter in a Ravens uniform, but he's a terrific football player with Penn State. Christian Gonzalez from Oregon, another guy that I like a whole lot too. Both those guys, I think you would be very excited if you picked up in this draft if they're still hanging around at that 22 spot. But then after that, there starts to be a drop-off. So then we turn to the free agent market. That's where we could find James Bradbury from the Philadelphia Eagles. He's had a really nice bounce-back year after previously playing for the New York Giants. We'll see if Philly brings him back or not, but he's probably the best corner on the free agent market potentially there. Then we find Marcus Peters within Baltimore. I'll say this. This is no offense to Marcus Peters, but I would rather bring in any of those three before I would pay Marcus Peters and bring him back. Marcus Peters, this almost feels like a last resort ordeal. Marcus Peters is older. We've already seen him deal with the injury issues. For my CB2, my second corner, I'm doing the other three, bringing those guys in before I'm bringing in Marcus Peters. But Marcus Peters is option 4, basically, at that point. And then there's William Jackson of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Sounds like that he could be a trade target, potentially Pittsburgh looking to move on from him. So, Marcus Peters, will he be in a Ravens uniform in 2023? What say you? Let me know in the comments section. Type Y for yes, type in for no. What do you think? Is Marcus Peters back in Baltimore next year? Let us know in the comments section. Today's show is presented by BetUS, the exclusive sportsbook partner of Chat Sports. If you go to chatsports.com/bet, enter the promo code CHAT125, you will get a 125% deposit bonus. Put $100 down, you get $125 to spend for free at chatsports.com/bet. Odds for the Super Bowl, very, very close. The Eagles just a 1-point favorite over the Kansas City Chiefs. Over-under is set at 51. Personally, I like the Eagles, but I more importantly like the over. I think we have a high-scoring game coming up on Sunday night. Get your bets in now. Get that 125% deposit bonus. Chatsports.com/bet, promo code CHAT125. Defensive tackle for the Ravens is also another need to keep in mind. And this one is very interesting. We have a little bit of everything when it comes to the defensive tackle spot. Free agency-wise, Javon Hargrave has been fantastic for Philadelphia. I think the Eagles are going to do everything they can to keep him in Philly, though, as far as I'm concerned. But nonetheless, if he hits free agency, that would be awesome to see him in a Ravens uniform. Speaking of free agents, Daron Payne, also another option. Potentially, we could see him go from one place in the DMV to another, make his way up to Baltimore. Daron Payne is going to be heavily desired for the Ravens at that point. Then we find Brian Breesy, the defensive tackle from Clemson. And I know what you're thinking. Wait, isn't Jalen Carter the best defensive tackle in this draft? Yes, he is, but there is going to be literally no way the Ravens are in a position to draft Jalen Carter. So we're not putting Jalen Carter on this list, barring some drastic change where the Ravens move up in the draft. That's just not happening. So we're not going to waste our time putting Jalen Carter on this list and go to Brian Breesy. Brian Breesy, we've seen him as projected top 10, maybe even at the very end of the first round potentially, but a very good football player. Ika, the defensive tackle from Baylor, another good one as well for the Ravens. Might be able to get him in the second round potentially if you made a move there to get a second-round pick. And then another free agent possibly is Dalvin Tomlinson of the Minnesota Vikings. So with that, at the defensive tackle spot, I have two more positions of need to get to, but got to hear from you first. You can only pick one at D-tackle. Are you going with Javon Hargrave or are you going with Daron Payne? If you're going with Hargrave, type JH. If you're going with Daron Payne, type DP. Let us know in the comments section. JH for Javon Hargrave, DP for Daron Payne. All right, fourth on the team needs list, edge/outside linebacker is a big need for this Ravens team. And this one, there's a lot of different ways we could go to fill the edge and outside linebacker spots. Remember, the Ravens ended up with Justin Houston this past offseason, and he was awesome. Led the Ravens in sacks this past year, but Justin Houston is getting older. I'm not opposed at all to bring Justin Houston back, but there are some better options than Justin Houston potentially, although I don't think Justin Houston would cost you that much. Let's show you these potential better options than Justin Houston. Marcus Davenport, the edge rusher of the New Orleans Saints. One of the best players in all of free agency this year, going to be heavily desired. Had a down year in New Orleans. Part of it, I think, was the scheme. Let's go to the draft now. Now, kind of like what we talked about with Jalen Carter. Will Anderson is nowhere going to be available for the Ravens to take. That's not happening. So then we turn our attention to Andre Carter II, outside linebacker from Army. Yes, you heard that right. I did not stutter. Army. Andre Carter, what a football player this guy is. He's tough. He's mentally tough. He's a do-it-all guy. You'd love to have Andre Carter potentially in a Ravens uniform. Then also in the draft, Lucas Van Ness, the edge rusher out of Iowa. There are question marks about him potentially being undersized, but nobody's arguing about how good of a football player that he is, and he would certainly be in position for the Ravens to draft. We go to free agency for our next two names. Jadeveon Clowney, he's been with a few different teams over the years, but we've seen Jadeveon Clowney still play at a high level and play well wherever he's been and adapt to the situations that he's been presented. Melvin Ingram, he's been on 3 different teams in the last 2 years, from Pittsburgh to Kansas City and most recently Miami, but he's still got something left in the tank at this point in time. Melvin Ingram, a very good football player there. So you have options there, and then, of course, there's still Justin Houston potentially as well. So one more name to get to before we wrap up, one more need. I want to know, name a player the Ravens should add this offseason, whether it's through free agency, whether it's through trades, the draft, whatever it is. Tell me in the comments section, name a player you'd like to see in a Ravens uniform next year. Last on the team needs list is the offensive guard spot. Look, the interior of the offensive line for the Ravens needs a little bit of help of some sort. You already have Tyler Linderbaum, your center for a very long time. But if you can get some help at those guard spots, that would certainly go a long way. And we bring this up because Ben Powers is a free agent. I would like to just bring Ben Powers back. He's in free agency. I think that pretty much takes care of the need that's there right now at the offensive guard spot. If you bring Ben Powers back, that I think would do you wonders. I loved what I saw from Ben Powers. He had a breakout year this year. But then, if for whatever reason you don't bring back Ben Powers, or maybe you want to look for some depth of sorts, don't sleep on Osiris Torrance, the offensive guard from Florida. Started his career with the Louisiana Ragin' Cajuns. He and Billy Napier made their way to the Florida Gators, and the SEC did not scare him at all. He was outstanding this year for Florida, an All-American, a do-everything guy, a real road grader, huge, just beast of a human there at the offensive guard spot. He's ready for the National Football League. Another guy, draft option, is Joshua Gray from Oregon State. And then 2 more names for you in free agency. Isaac Samoa, you'll see him in the Super Bowl playing for the Philadelphia Eagles. And then there's Dalton Reisner. And Reisner is one I think is very interesting because we've seen him play well in Denver, and his market value, he's kind of under the radar. He's not going to be that expensive. So he could be a good bargain buy, potentially, Reisner is in free agency. So there you have it. Those are the team needs for the Ravens and potential options to fill said needs when it comes to trades or free agency or the draft. Now I want to know from you, before we go, shout it out. What is the Ravens' biggest need this offseason? Let us know in the comments section below. You can follow me on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Tyler Jones Live, talking about your Baltimore Ravens and those social media platforms. And I'll see you next time right here on the Ravens Rundown.